Hello and welcome to episode number 364. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Thank you very much for listening in. Please remember that we are a listener-supported podcast, so if you enjoy these interviews, then please visit pm-podcast.com/premium. Well, is the PMP certification worth it? According to Niraj Kumar, the answer is an emphatic yes. He not only says that the PMP salary that you can expect is greater on average, but he also found many other PMP certification benefits. Having a shared vocabulary and enjoying a completely different and often steep career path are just two of them. If you are a project manager and you want to become PMP or PMI-ACP certified, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast or the Agile Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching the in-depth exam prep video training from pmprepcast.com. So if you are either already PMP certified or you're thinking about it and wondering about the value of PMP certification, then this interview with Niraj Kumar is definitely for you. Niraj and I, we explore the benefits of being or becoming a PMP from various aspects. And now, getting there is half the fun, being there is all of it. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Niraj Kumar, who blogs about leadership and leads a team of managers and engineers at his day job. Hello Niraj and welcome to the program.
Hello Cornelius. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored. I'm very honored to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Very happy to have you. So you became a PMP a long time ago. We want to talk about the value of the PMP exam, but what can our listeners expect to take away from our discussion today?
I think connecting to what you just said, our listeners can take away the fact that PMP certification does not add value just right now in their career, right in this moment. It keeps adding value for a long time. And looking at a certification like this for the value it creates long term is a way to go. And it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, that you don't have to gain everything right now. But it also lets a PMP understand that this is something that will keep helping them for a long, long time.
Why is it important for you to talk about this? Because I want to make it absolutely clear to the listeners, this interview wasn't my idea. You wrote to me and said, why don't we do an interview about the value of the PMP exam? So what is the importance for you?
The importance for me personally is that a certification and appearing for a certification, writing the exam, connecting with the community of certified professionals kind of helps you on a self-growth. It puts you on a path to self-development. It gets you into a category of professionals who are not relying on others to help them develop, but they are responsible. They are taking the ownership of developing themselves, adding more value to the customers they serve. And I believe that if you think about professionals that we interact with, not many are interested in self-development. Many of them are just interested in what they can get out of the business, what they can get out of the employer. I believe to really gain a higher ground in their career and to accelerate their career, it's necessary for them to invest in themselves. And that's why I felt like I needed to reach out to you and send the message that PMP certification is a great start to putting yourself in that differentiated category where you go to your clients, your sponsors, and you make a case with your behavior, with your certification, with your studies and self-growth that I'm somebody that you don't have to coax into developing. I take charge of my own growth, and what I learn every day will be instrumental in providing more value to you, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Sponsor or Miss client.
It's been 7 years since you took your PMP exam. It's even been longer for me. From your perspective, was it worth it? Are you happy that you became a PMP?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe it was totally worth it because before that exam, before I started preparing for my PMP, I used to think that you can either learn, go to school and be a full-time student, or you can have a rewarding career, or you can be a professional. But while preparing for the exam, my internal view changed that you can do both. In fact, it's necessary to grow at the same time as you are providing value to your sponsors, to your stakeholders as a project manager, and gave me the confidence that you can design a learning path for yourself as a consummate professional who keeps learning every day. In fact, the biggest lesson I learned is that if you learn half an hour every day, then it adds up and the cumulative benefits are huge because you learn for half an hour and you apply the next day. Then you learn for half an hour. I felt like the value is even bigger than going to a school full time and just studying and then waiting until you get a job, until you start your business, however you provide value to your customer. So I think in that sense, the certification exam was totally worth it. It put me on a path of self-growth that never stopped. And when PMI included the talent triangle and they added business skills and leadership skills, that was just amazing for me to see because it was so tied to what I had seen for the first 5 years. I had seen that the best project managers, the most successful ones, the ones who command a higher salary, the ones who are called by their ex-clients to take on new projects, they were the ones who were not only learning PM technical skills, but they were learning business of their clients, and they were growing in their own leadership skills. So I was very happy to see that, and I think it was totally worth it, just the way it changed my belief system on how you learn and apply the skills you learn.
You've mentioned the magic word, salary. There are studies out there that say that PMPs earn a higher salary in the marketplace. Do you think this is correct? Do PMPs receive a higher salary?
I think I know that PMI has data that proves it, but I personally have observed that it's kind of an indirect link. I don't think that you write a PMP exam and next day your salary goes up, unless you work for a few organizations where it's clearly documented. I know that there are a few organizations where they clearly tell you that if you're a PMP, you earn a higher salary. If we leave them out, and it's a small percentage of the employers I have seen, if you leave them out, your salary does not immediately go up. In the long run, though, it does go up. It goes up because of a few factors. First, when you are looking for a new job or a new project, if you have a PMP, there are more opportunities available to you because many employers will not even consider someone who does not have a PMP. So if a non-PMP has 10 opportunity and PMP has 100, then you are in a position to negotiate. You're in a position to kind of choose and pick and choose your clients. And that's the way I see PMP increasing your salary. So eventually, yes, I would say it does increase the salary for a project manager. It increases as I previously mentioned, it increases your growth potential. It increases your promotion path. In fact, after I obtained my PMP, within a year, I was promoted to a program manager role. I was a project manager and then became a program manager.
Mm-hmm. And of course, that also meant a salary increase.
Absolutely, yes, it did. Okay. Because it was a higher grade role. After that role, project managers reported to me, and I was running a large program. So it meant a larger responsibility, but salary absolutely did go up.
Can you think of any other benefits that a PMP can expect from his or her certification?
The benefits, if we think about career growth itself, one of the major benefits is that you are able to connect with other PMPs, and that means you are able to network with professionals who are earning higher salaries, professionals who are exclusive because now they have a certification. They speak a common language. And then if you're, let's say you're an independent contractor, you obviously have a higher chance of finding new clients. So that's a benefit. I have really enjoyed going to the PMI events, volunteering there. I would say that just in terms of a bigger professional network that I have acquired through PMP certification has been worthwhile. I remember every time I have had to find a new job, it has come handy because it gives me the confidence that I'm not alone. I have, in a way, you have your friends who are looking out for you. If you need a job, it's easy to connect. If you need a new project, it's easy to find where the new projects are coming up in your area or even anywhere else if you're willing to travel. So that way, it has been very, very helpful to have a certification. I have also been able to give back to the community. I speak at my local PMI, so that allows you to have a higher profile. There are studies to prove that professionals who speak, who are also speakers, tend to earn a higher profile and tend to earn a higher salary. So if you think about it, that has also allowed me to gain more in terms of what I get for the value I provide to the market.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was wondering, you mentioned that within a year, your career took off. You became a PMO manager, right? So I was wondering about the general trajectory from a PMP. Can a PMP expect their career to go up faster and steeper than somebody, who's not certified? And here's the caveat. You're doing a lot. You have a blog, you speak, you're obviously quite active as a project manager, and you take care of your career. So let's assume somebody who's just, I'm just an employee, I'm a PMP, I have a salaried position. Can I still expect my career to take off even though I'm not like Niraj? I don't have a blog, I don't speak, I'm not as actively involved?
I would say yes. That's a very good way of approaching. I appreciate the way you are asking the question because we want to see what's the minimum somebody can get out of it. The minimum you get out of it is a common language that PMPs speak. You become really well versed in speaking a language that every PMP understands. People in the project world, people who are sponsors, people who are clients, they understand the language you speak, and PMP gives you that language, and that itself is worth a lot because if you think about a project manager's time, we spend more than 70% of our time communicating. And if you can communicate in a language that's well understood, and you know that it's well understood, it's worth investing your time, money, and effort into. And I think just for that, I would advocate somebody getting a certification, getting the PMP certification.
And what about applying what you learn on the job? As you are preparing for the PMP exam, there is a lot of information to take in. You study for hours and hours and hours at end. You learn the theory, you internalize it so you can pass the exam. But now what? Now you've got the certificate, you have the piece of paper. How do you actually turn that into action items at work?
This is what I would recommend anybody who has gone through a PMP certification preparation and have a PMP. I think we should remember that when we are working on a project, we are working either on a project for a sponsor or we are working on a project for a client. And in both scenarios, they have a view of the project that might be different from ours. And let me explain what I mean in a term that a PMP will understand. There are 9 knowledge areas that we learn about. And if I go around and ask, let's say 10 PNPs, which knowledge areas are most important to you? I'll get different answers. I have gotten different answers. I think the way to approach the learning that we get is to pre-prioritize our view by subordinating our priority to our client's priority. That means if I'm working for a sponsor who is worried about a risk profile of their project, of their company, and my project is to reduce the risk. And I can give you an example. I worked on a project where my clients were thinking about reducing the risk of an FDA audit. I worked in the medical sector, and for them, that was the most important knowledge area. They were not as concerned about, let's say, procurement or other areas that as a project manager I was. So I think what I would do as a project manager is kind of give a higher preference to what my customer needs and then less preference to what I think is really needed here. Because in that scenario that I described, my client really needed me to focus on the risk management part. They were not as focused on cost management. If my budget exceeded by 5%, but if I reduced the risk by 20%, that's what my client would have wanted, that particular client. So I think when we are applying our knowledge areas, we should always keep that in mind. I really believe that it's actually going to give you more value in the end if you subordinate your priority to your client's priority. So if your client thinks that risk is the biggest thing to manage here, let's manage that. Let's give your customer that first and then worry about schedule and cost and other things. So that's how I have applied, and I learned these lessons the hard way. I think it feels like a selfless way of going about it because you're putting your clients before you. But I think at the end of the day, it's the most selfish way of doing things because when you add value to your clients, you get a lot more in return. Because once you have the approach of subordinating your knowledge area's preference to your client's preference, so your client's preference are given a higher value on your list, then you will gain credibility. You'll be able to lead your client better. You will in fact be called on by other clients to take on the project because your client will go and tell others how great you are at customer service.
I'd like to steer our conversation back to money, but this time not salary, this time the money that the PMP exam certification costs because it can become quite expensive. There's the cost for training. Most people become a PMI members, so there's a membership fee. There are books, the exam fee itself, to name just a few. And once you are a PMP certified, it doesn't stop there because then you have to recertify. You have to earn PDUs through training and other means, and that again can cost a lot of money. Do you think it is up to the project manager to pay for this?
I believe it is, and it goes back to my belief in self-development. I think the best investment for the money that you can make today is in yourself. If you invest 3-4% of your salary into yourself, it will actually give you a better return than any stock market is going to give you. I have seen it from my own experience. I have seen it in so many other professionals' experiences. So I would just say that give it a try. Just invest in yourself and see what you gain in return. One more thing is that what we have noticed is that many companies will invest money in your training. Maybe your employer is one of those employers and you are fortunate that they do. But I've also noticed that when the budget is tight, and I know that through experience myself because now I lead a team of managers and I'm responsible for their salary, for project budget and all that for my employer. And I think every time the company profit goes down, we start looking at things to cut. And sometimes training budget is cut. In fact, when I was about to appear for my PMP exam, this happened at my employer. The training budget was cut. And I can just go back and tell you the story, if that's okay, about how I handled the
Absolutely, yes.
The money
Please.
question, because at that point I started adding up, and I found your website, and it was, you had started a great business back then. I was so happy to find your site because I knew that an on-site training would have cost me $2,000. And here I was at that point, your Prepcast was less than $200. So I felt so good that it's so little. So I calculate all the expenses that I'll have to incur for my PMP, and I went to my boss and I asked him if the company will pay for it. In fact, I knew that we would have gotten permission to pay for it 8 months earlier than the time I was talking to him. And my boss said, "Well, our training budget has been cut, and I can't promise you that we'll pay for it." And I was sad, obviously. And at that time, I started thinking about what to do. Should I wait for a year? Because there is always that likelihood that maybe next year we'll make more profit, and then maybe our training budget will go up. But I also didn't want to wait because I knew that I need to take the ownership of my own career development. So I asked my boss a little bit more about how much money he has left, and I learned very quickly that the amount of money he had left per person in his team was not enough to pay for my exam and everything. It was around $700 or something like that, and I couldn't ask him to pay that much. So I asked him, can I talk to your supervisor? That means my boss's boss. And I said, well, if you support my development, and I think we both understand it's a good thing for me to go for a PMP certification. We understand that there is no money in the budget, but I would like to try and ask your boss if he'll be okay, but I do want your support here. And he said, yeah, sure, because I believe that you should get a certification like that. We just don't have the money. So at that point, I go to my boss's boss, who was also a sponsor for one of my projects. So I go to him, and I still remember I asked him about, does he have money in the budget? Because I really think it will help us. It will help the whole project, because I become a better PM, then he'll start getting better status reports and probably better communication. So I also talked to him about how he will benefit at the end as well, not just me. And at this point, I started thinking about my negotiation skills that I had learned from a different course. And one of the things I learned is that you look at it from both parties' perspective, because there is something that you gain out of it, but also think what they are going to get out of it, and reduce the other party's risk involved in the transaction. So by taking that learning from the negotiation course I had taken, I proposed something to him. I said, look, we don't have money per employee, but there are so many people who don't go for training. They have the money allocated, which is very little. So their money will be left in the budget because they're not asking for it. I'm the only one. As far as I knew, I was the only one who had approached him to ask for training expense. And I told him, what if we do this? I'm going to pay for everything from my own pocket, and you only reimburse my expenses if I pass the exam. And at that point he said, yeah, we can do that. So I was very pleased, but now I had given myself a goal to pursue, and I knew that if I don't pass the exam, I'm not going to get that money back that I just invested. So that helped me keep myself on track, because anytime I would get off track, I would think about how I can lose that money. So this is a funny way to take care of your expenses. You use your negotiation skills. You demonstrate that you can negotiate to yourself and to your boss, and also keep yourself on track, on the hook a little bit, because now you know that if you don't pass, you're not going to get that money back. So that's what I ended up doing. I passed the exam, and they did reimburse me the expenses.
How did you stay motivated during the whole exam preparation experience? Because you said your friends, your colleagues at work, they weren't really interested in training. They weren't really interested, obviously, in self-growth. How did you keep yourself motivated and on track when everybody else around you was just like, whatever, I don't need this?
These are some of the things I took into account back then, and hopefully our listeners can take away some things from here. One of the things I noticed is that your circumstances, the people you hang out with, they have a funny way of impacting your mental state. So we had some coworkers who wanted to go to a bar every night after work, every evening. They would just go to the bar, hang out, and then they'll head home. And I learned that if I hang out with them, I would end up going to the bar and not studying for PMP exam. They were also of the belief system that you just have fun and don't worry about tomorrow. This is it. And I also noticed that they were really not getting promotions. They were not getting raises. So I thought, okay, I need to stay away from them. And I had difficulty telling them no, but I realized that that's what I had to do. So I would say something like, I would love to join you guys, but today I got to study these 2 pages on PMBOK that is on my plan, and I could only study 30 to 45 minutes. So first thing I did is I changed the types of people I used to hang out with. I started hanging out with people who were like me. They were interested in investing in themselves. They would go to training. They would go take classes. They would talk about ideas to solve a project problems. So I started getting away from people who were not interested in it, in self-growth, to people who are interested. And it's amazing how they will encourage you. If you fall off track, those friends will inspire you. They'll say, "Oh, we understand what happened last day. You had to stay longer at work, but tomorrow, why don't you study during lunchtime?" And they would give you tips to apply what you learned. So finding friends who will keep you accountable is a great way to go, because we are social creatures and we are impacted by who we hang out with. So make sure that your friends are the right friends who are spending a lot of time with you. The second thing I did is I told my wife that I'm going to be working on my PMP, and that means I will not be that available to even to cook or do home chores at home. So she was very supportive. So I was able to invest regular time in my studies and just look at the good things you're doing. Like, as a project managers, we report our wins, the project wins, to our sponsors. Well, you can start reporting your own wins to yourself. I would just say, well, I finished earned value calculation understanding today, and I would put it on my Outlook calendar, or just an accounting of what did I finish this week. I will write it up and I'll look at it to keep myself motivated. And so those things were very helpful to keep me going.
Okay, let's wrap this up. From your experience, what would you recommend to our listeners? Some of them are long-time PMPs, some of them have maybe just passed their PMP exam, and others are just heading towards the certification. What can they do in order to help them turn the PMP exam into a positive experience for themselves and for their future career? What are some of the recommendations you would give them?
I think the first recommendation I'll give them, something that they can apply right away, they can do right away. I will say, look at your project that you are managing, or projects, and apply one thing you learned from your PMP exam, just one. Because the performance does not come from knowing, it comes from taking action, application. So just apply one thing anywhere in your project that you can. So that's the first thing I would suggest. The second thing is keep connected. Go to your PMI dinner, talk to other PMPs, listen to the podcast, and when you're driving to work, you are probably listening to music. Maybe once a week, listen to an audio from a PM podcast, or an audio by an author who just wrote a book that you're interested in. Are you interested in leadership skills? Then learn about leadership skills. Are you interested in learning more about the business of your clients? Learn that. So that's what I would leave our listeners with.
Niraj, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Cornelis. It has been a pleasure.
And that was our interview on the value of the PMP exam with Niraj Kumar. If you are a project manager who wants to become PMP or PMI ACP certified, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcasts, the Project Management Prepcast or the Agile Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching the in-depth exam prep video training from pmprepcast.com. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com. And finally, we have this. You do not lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership. Until next time.